is still a good tennis player, despite the fact that maybe he's not getting any younger. And Kyrgios is actually, when he's on his best, he can actually be unplayable. He can actually be an entertainer and also, grind out wins, especially, in matches with a competitive player like Adrian Manarino, who's actually also in stable form at the moment. So I see that Kyrgios is starting to become promising, and hopefully he can continue with that fine form I had, in the previous tournament, the Indian Wells, and now in the Miami Open. If he doesn't really meet someone who's actually maybe more stronger than him, like maybe the Alexander Zverev and the Tsitsipas, I believe he can go all the way, to increase, his rankings once more.
Do you think? Are you surprised that Nick Kyrgios is a wild card entrant to the Miami Open?
I was actually surprised, but it's there are so many wild card players in this particular tournament. Even Andy Murray also getting a wild card to play in this tournament. I was actually surprised by that fact. He's actually supposed to, be in this tournament without needing a wild card, but it might be due to the officials or the organizers of the tournament, giving him a wild card and making him, play in this particular tournament. I was really surprised to see him come through.
What?
That particular route.
Yes, just before we get out of tennis, Kelechi, I'll still stay with you because we've seen surprises in this tournament. There's a certain Jack Draper from Britain who is ranked number 145. He's taking out Gail Simmons from the Miami Open in the very first round, 7-5, 6-1 he did end. And this is his very first Masters 1000 victory, and taking out an established or a renowned player like Gail Simmons in the very first round.
It shouldn't really come as a surprise, despite the fact that Gail Simmons is actually one of the experienced or established tennis players, in recent years, but he's not actually been in his best of form. I can't remember, Gail Simmons winning two matches in a row. Draper is someone has actually been rising of late. He's taking part in so many challenges, and right now, he's taking part in this Masters title. And to start with a win against Gail Simmons shouldn't be a surprise because of how young he is and how more established and how more efficient and consistent he has been. He's more fit than Gail Simmons, who actually, I feel, that has not actually been, the best tennis player that we used to see him be. He's actually, not at his best at the moment. And so losing to Jack Draper should not actually be a surprise to anyone because of, the form and the contrast of form that both players have.
Well, I think I'm really surprised myself that Gail Simmons could be losing to someone ranked as low as 146 in the world, and this victory now will definitely be taken to within the 100. But well, let's take a break. When we return from the break, we will get to some other exciting stories trending at this point in time in the world of sport, especially in basketball, where Ken Irwin has a rare hope of playing again before the New York fans. When we return from the break, we'll let you know the details. Stay with us. Television network, and we'll bring you yet another boxing story that is trending at this point in time. Alexander Usyk Odemko has departed Ukraine to begin preparations for his heavyweight rematch with Anthony Joshua this summer. Usyk had enlisted in the Ukrainian army to fight for his country, but I think he's having a pause now because he has to return to prepare for the all-important clash against Nigeria's Anthony Joshua.
Well, if Anthony Joshua doesn't take his pound of peace at this point against Alexander Usyk, then there will be no other time. Usyk seems to be distracted. Usyk seems to be a bit depressed, going by what the invasion of Ukraine by Russia is taking a toll on him, having left his boxing to go and fight to defend his country. So there is no better time for Anthony Joshua to seek his pound of flesh than now. If Joshua doesn't do it now, then I don't think he could do it again. So Joshua has that drive, he has that motivation to make sure that he takes his pound of flesh against Alexander Usyk.
Well, Kelechi, Alexander Usyk seems to have been given a special permission by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense to go prepare for this fight. But Lomachenko doesn't seem to have that permission as well, because of a rule which says if you have more than 3 children, you could have this permission. But we now know that Usyk has more than 3, while Lomachenko has just 2 kids, and that's why he is not having the same special permission to go prepare for his fight. What do you think?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I'm having a network difficulty here and hearing you.
Okay, I was saying that we've seen a situation where Alexander Usyk has been given permission by the Ministry of Defense in Ukraine to leave the army to go prepare for his fight against Anthony Joshua. This same permission has not been given to Lomachenko because he has only 2 children as compared to 3, where 3 children clause given to Alexander Usyk. Usyk has 3, while Lomachenko has 2. They say if you don't have up to 3 or more, you cannot have this permission to leave the war front and go pursue some other interests.
Well, it's actually, preferential treatment given to Alexander Usyk for this particular one. It's actually also to start with, like the sacrifices that the Ukrainians have put in to defend their country. It's actually, what commendable, and it's actually, worthy of adulation. If you see some of the sport athletes, standing in the line, joining the army to defend themselves as well. But he's got a match to prepare for, which is against Anthony Joshua, and it's actually going to be interesting to watch this one. And the permission given to him, to take part in the match and to leave the army front is actually good. His other compatriots should not feel bad by this particular decision. But I feel that maybe it might actually look unfair. But I feel that this is very important match coming up for Alexander Usyk against Anthony Joshua. So it's actually not really a big deal for him to be given that preferential treatment.
Well, Alexander Usyk and of course his counterpart Anthony Joshua are expected to meet sometime tentatively on the 11th of June 2022. We just hope that as this fight preparation gets ahead, Ukraine will have the better of Russia, or at least there will be peace between Russia and Ukraine, so as to allow Alexander Usyk concentrate fully on this fight. Let's go away now from boxing and we'll go to basketball, and it has to be international basketball, where we're having just about 8 games or so for the regular season in basketball to come to an end. But Memphis Grizzlies in the early hours of this morning beat Brooklyn Nets by 132 to 120 points without their star man Ja Morant. This is very good victory for Memphis Grizzlies because they're moving closer to very challenging positions at their conference. Yes,
it's good for them to come out tops in that conference so that they could go for the major playoff. But at this point, Memphis Grizzlies, without their star man, beating Brooklyn Nets 132 to 120. It's a very wonderful scoreline. It shows that they are improving. Leading by 12 points is no mean task, and it's a good thing for them. But all they just need to do is to see how they could come out from that this conference so that they could go for the playoffs, because that's where the big teams are. That's where you get to make the big and mega bucks. That's where everything goes for you. The NBA title, it's up for grab.
Well, Kelechi, let's look at this match involving Memphis Grizzlies and the Brooklyn Nets. Memphis Grizzlies right now are having some kind of a combination play, if you ask me. We've seen Desmond Barner with 23 points and, of course, 9 assists. We've also seen Melton with 23 points in this fixture. Dylan Brooks, too, had double figures in this fixture. You think a combination of these 3 star players for Memphis Grizzlies without Ja Morant was responsible for this victory against Brooklyn Nets?
Definitely. These are players that actually stepped up in the absence of Ja Morant in the early hours of today. Coming up against Brooklyn Nets have actually started to start winning games. The combination of Melton and Baines was actually a very good combination, and they stepped up to play very well. Ja Morant, not seen an injury, also rested for this particular game. And despite the presence of Kyrie Irving, who was also celebrating his birthday as well, scoring 43 points, it was not enough because Grizzlies were, running riot in the match, and they were actually impressive, hitting scoring points from different players as well. So it just tells you that as a team, Memphis Grizzlies are actually a team that is not reliant on a particular player, because it looks like they even play better, or they play the same way whether or not Ja Morant is on the pitch. So it's actually a good combination from the players that stepped up yesterday in Ja Morant's absence.
Well, talking about a combination player by star players, Burning, of course, Melton and De'Aaron Brooks for Memphis Grizzlies. They've now won 6 out of 7 games and presently second at that Western Conference. Is this what we expected of them at the beginning of the season?
It wasn't actually what we expected from Grizzlies. I mean, in fact, this is just one of their 50th win in 7 years, which is something that is actually rare, but this time around, it looks like Ja Morant has actually inspired this team, to be a consistent side and a team that can actually be consistent. They always step up in games this season, even when they play against the big teams like the Phoenix Suns, the Golden State Warriors. You see them, playing very well and scoring a lot of points. And they've actually, hit the ground running this season, and they've been impressive. And it just tells you about how good they are because of where they are in the log right now. So Memphis Grizzlies are actually one of the teams to beat, in my opinion. And with Ja Morant, in the mix, it just tells you how well prepared and how talented that these players are. They've got a whole lot of young lads, and they play very well as a team, as a unit. And with Ja Morant, I believe that they can actually go far, especially when the playoffs start.
Well, we saw Brooklyn Nets with some good performance. You earlier talked about Kevin Irving putting up as many as 43 points. Kevin Durant as well put up as many as 35 points. But these high scores were not good enough for them to overpower Memphis Grizzlies in Memphis. And the biggest news that came out of that fixture was the fact that we are being told that the New York City mayor, Eric Adams, is coming out to say that they are set now to lift the ban on athletes and performers not being taking part in events where they are not vaccinated. So it means that Kyrie Irving, who is not vaccinated, will now be playing before the New York fans any moment from now. I think this is cheering to basketball fans not only in New York but across the world.
Yeah, it's actually a good news coming from the mayor, in New York. As in, when I heard that this morning, it just helps out for the athletes, the entertainers, to take part in particular games and not, being restricted to, play at home and all of that. So it's actually good news, especially for a player like Kyrie Irving, who was actually facing this type of issue last time around. But it was actually a good news for all the athletes, to relieve or to lift up that particular suspension for those who have not been vaccinated. So it's actually good news, and hopefully it can help the athletes and the sports players to take part in games that they are not supposed to be missing.
Well, the law is meant, or the rules and regulations are meant for human beings, and not human beings meant for these regulations. What do you think? COVID is still around the corner, not completely off, but then we've seen a situation where some other citizens of New York have been allowed into venues. Now you can even go to a venue without being checked whether you've been vaccinated or not. The athletes themselves should have some kind of same treatment, whether they are vaccinated or not. They should be in action. If fans are allowed to come in, whether they are vaccinated or not, then the athletes themselves should be allowed, and that's where Kyrie Irving now is being now. A lot of people are saying, okay, well, allow him play before the New York fans. We saw him the other day in Orlando. He put as many as 60 points, and now he's put up another 43 points. You can imagine what his team has been missing, Brooklyn has been missing since the beginning of the season.
Yeah, allowing fans to come into the stadium without being vaccinated, I'm looking at it from two very different points of view. First and foremost, you look at it that they sit down, they could be spaced, and it's not too bad, but to get vaccinated, I'm not against being vaccinated, but for the players themselves, because of the close contact, the physical contact, where they exert a lot of strength, a lot of energy, fluids are being passed, they break, so it's better for the players to get vaccinated. That way the rate will be very, very reduced. But fans, they could sit well spaced out, it's not an issue. But I'm not against being vaccinated, but for players, they must be vaccinated so that they don't spread the virus. The only thing they need to spread is the good news.
Good news that the New York Mayor Eric Adams is set to lift the ban on unvaccinated players and performers taking part in events in New York City. We're still talking about New York City. Kelechi, we saw New York Knicks beat the Charlotte Hornets by 126 points to 106 points. Good news for New York basketball fans.
Yeah, it was good news for New York Knicks, especially with the absence of Julius Randle. I actually never expected them to get a win against the Hornets. Hornets who have actually picked up 4 or 5 wins in a row and also played well at home of late as well. But to lose to New York Knicks, especially when I saw the scoreline at halftime, I just knew that the Hornets were not playing the best of game. Even with LaMelo Ball actually hitting about 30 points plus in that match. Yeah, it wasn't enough for them. New York Knicks running riot thanks to Fournier and of course Barrett, who's actually stepping up in the absence of Julius Randle. So it's a good win for New York Knicks, who look to have started picking up wins of late, especially away from home.
Well, good news for New York Knicks, and same good news for Golden State Warriors, because they beat Miami Heat 118 points to 104 points. Leaders in their conference been threatened now.
Yeah, actually, Golden State was, after losing 3 in a row, back to winning ways against the best team in the Eastern Conference. It was actually a good result for them. With the absence of Stephen Curry and also Klay Thompson also giving a rest in that one, Poole, Wiggins, and his teammate also running the show for them. It was actually an impressive win for them. At some point, the first and second quarter was a close match. They were
We seem to be having a little bit of network issues there, but hope we can sort all of that out. At that point, we'll take a break. When we return from the break, we'll go to football, where there's been some interesting development. Don't forget, the Super Eagles of Nigeria has just about 24 hours to confront the Black Stars of Ghana in Kumasi. In a bit, they're taking the only ticket available to go into the World Cup from that group. When we return from the break, we'll look at that, and of course, across Europe as well, where Chelsea now can sell tickets to fans to watch the games. Details of that and many more will be yours when we return from the break. Stay with us. Sports talk, and of course we're into football now as we begin to close to home. The Super Eagles of Nigeria should be on their way now to Kumasi, Ghana, ahead of the very important clash against the Black Stars of Ghana. Yesterday we were told that the team from FIFA and CAF had arrived to conduct a COVID-19 test. What's his name now? Jordan Ayew, that was positive before, has now been declared negative, and so he will now be part of the Black Stars of Ghana. Bearing any unforeseen circumstances, we should think that the Super Eagles of Nigeria should pass the COVID-19 test. We've seen in the past where some African countries use the COVID-19 test to rule out star players for the team. Any fears for the Super Eagles of Nigeria?
Well, first and foremost, I think this game has been bedeviled with a lot of ups and downs and upheavals. First, it started from a match venue. Just a few days to the game, it was agreed that they will go to their fortress, the Baba Yara Stadium. As at yesterday, it was Jordan Ayew who has been ruled out of the game as a result of COVID-19 to be given a clean bill of health that he will now play. Thirdly, a team of FIFA and CAF officials to conduct a COVID test. But the good thing is that FIFA is coming for that reason. I'm sure it will be done without any hidden agenda. It will be done with all manner of sincerity of purpose. That way nobody will be left alone. But if it were to be in the hands of CAF alone, I would have been thinking otherwise. But FIFA might not subscribe to any foul play. Just that the Eagles, they need to be very prepared. What they are going for, it's a war, it's a crunchy tie. It's not the kind of war where they carry weapons. This one, it's more like a sports war.
Sports war often, but we hope the Super Eagles of Nigeria should win this war. Kelechi, are you back there? Okay, and maybe we're having continuous issues on the network, but I hope we can sort it out better. The team will arrive in Kumasi. This test will be done. Hopefully, it can be over. A lot of people are beginning to brook about the absence of Wilfred Ndidi in that midfield position for Nigeria. Are you worried that there will be no Wilfred Ndidi in the midfield position?
It's quite unfortunate that we'll miss the services of Wilfred Onye Ndidi at this crucial point when his services are needed most. But for me, I think the team earlier on would have done more than this, grooming a capable replacement for Ndidi, because football, it's something that must be played by a player who is 100% fit. So they should be able to replicate another Ndidi in the team, so that once Ndidi is not playing, we're sure that someone who can hold forth for him will be there. It's quite unfortunate that we'll miss his services when it's needed most. But life goes on. Football is a game of 11 players against 11 players. And Nigeria, with a population of over 200 million people, according to UN statistics, we should be able to replicate up to 10 Ndidis.
We're talking about replicating in the midfield of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Kelechi, we have Frank Onyeka from Brentford in England. There's Joseph Ayodele Aribo from Glasgow Rangers in Scotland. There's Innocent Bonke making his first appearance with the team. There's Ogenekaro Etebo as well, who plays for Watford in England. And Aki Kumi, another new entrant to the team, Amo from Copenhagen in Denmark, in that midfield position. Is any of them good enough to wearing the boots of Wilfred Ndidi that will be absent?
Yeah, I believe so. Just like your guest said, it's not always good to rely on a particular player. I believe there are players that can actually fill in, the void of Wilfred Ndidi. Like you made mention, Aribo is there. You've got Ekaro Etebo, which I feel can actually fill in the boots of Wilfred Ndidi. Although it's not really like someone who's going to do the dirty work or be as good as Wilfred Ndidi, but someone who can actually be as good a replacement for Wilfred Ndidi. Because if you see how important Wilfred Ndidi has been to the Nigerian side, especially in that position, is actually very, very instrumental. Especially what he does for Leicester as well. He's actually one of the key players for them, and so it's going to be a big miss for Nigeria. But I believe that Nigeria has players all over the pitch that can actually replace Wilfred Ndidi and make his absence not to be missed too much against the Black Stars of Ghana.
Well, Wilfred Ndidi has a replacement. Of course, like we mentioned to you, there is Aribo, there is a Tebo in that midfield position. All of them capable of taking on that shirt. But you can never take away the contribution of Wilfred Ndidi in front of that defense line for Nigeria. When we return at 6 p.m. Nigerian time, we'll be taking an in-depth look at the entire Nigerian team, from the goalkeeping department to the midfield and to the attack as well. We'll take a depth at quality of the technical crew for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. That will be our focus on Sports Extraordinary later. And of course, look at the team, the Black Stars as well, ahead of the very important clash coming up in the next 24 hours at the Baba Yara Stadium in Kumasi, Ghana. One match, and of course the second will be coming on Tuesday in Nigeria. Thereafter, one team will qualify to play in Qatar for the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Still looking at developments, like I mentioned to you, the Super Eagles are already on their way to Kumasi, Ghana. Let's go across to Europe now, where there could be one or two very interesting developments. Manchester United in search of a coach. They've tried poaching and talking to a few, but we've now been confirmed that they've actually had an interview with the coach of Ajax. Eric Ten has now been interviewed by Manchester United. You think he is the quality they need?
At this point, Manchester United going for Eric Ten Hag. I don't know the indices, I don't know the parameter with which they narrowed their search to Ten Hag. But considering what he's done with Ajax Amsterdam over time, I think he has done very well, taking Ajax from where they were at the time Ajax lost it. But look at Ajax under Ten Hag, they've been very consistent in the Champions League the last 3-4 seasons, and they've always gone beyond the first round. So it's a good thing, and he's also been able to churn out some wonderful players in the person of Sebastian Haller and others. So Ajax is doing very well at this point, but can he replicate what he's doing in Ajax in Manchester United? We know that the English league is very competitive. It has a lot of coaches who are doing very well, like the Guardiolas of this world, the Jurgen Klopp, Thomas Tuchel. Can he compete with them? Manchester United, it's not a place where you bring somebody for trial and error. It's not a place where you bring somebody for experimenting. It's somebody that is a club where you bring a coach that will hit the ground running. Manchester United is an institution.
Well, Kelechi, Manchester United in search of a new coach, and this is their 5th coach search in 9 years. Is this good for the brand Manchester United?
Sorry, can you come again? Can you repeat your question?
I was saying that we have been told that Eric Ten of Ajax has been interviewed by Manchester United, and a coach search in 9 years. Does this speak well of the brand Manchester United?
Well, it's not really good since after Alex Ferguson left Manchester United. Manchester United have really struggling to get the right coaches who are actually going to not just come in and win trophies, but to stay as long as Alex Ferguson did. But for them to get in touch with Eric Ten, which is actually a good manager, who's actually shown that he's one of the top sorted out managers in Europe because of what he has done for Ajax. He has made Ajax to be a very good side. I think he's the type to ensure that United challenge for title because he's brought stability to Ajax, and I believe that he can actually do the same to Man.
Well, it looks like a day where network gives us a lot of problem, and we're having that from the end where Kelechi is speaking to us. But Edemko, I put the question again to you. Do you think it is good for the image of Manchester United to be in the market for the 5th coach in 9 years? Before, we used to have coaches, like you talked about Sir Alex Ferguson. He stayed with the team for as long as over 20 years.
Well, Manchester United is staying with Sir Alex Ferguson for over 20 years. They had faith. You see Jurgen Klopp also doing very well in Liverpool. But when we talk of Chelsea, they are one club that are not patient with coaches. Once you're not meeting target, once you're not meeting what you're meant to do, they ship you out and bring in another person. So for Manchester United, the 5th coach in 9 years, the owners of the club, they know what they are looking for. But the problem is just that the way and manner which they go for coaches, it takes them time to replace. Unlike Chelsea, as soon as A is leaving, they are bringing in the next person. But in this case, you see Manchester United having that gap, and it's not too good for them. But I think Ten Hag too will definitely grow the team if only they will give him time. Will the owners of the club have that patience to go like 2-3 years without silverware? If they can, then he will.
Well, I don't know whether Kelechi is back on. Like, Kelechi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, let's stay away from Chelsea, Manchester United now. At least we know that of the several coaches that have been names were dropped, one has been interviewed, and it looks most likely that at the end of the season he will be taking over at Manchester United. In the days ahead, we will follow up and of course do let our fans and listeners, viewers as well know what is happening in Manchester United as regards their 5th coach in 9 years. Let's go to the other big news that is happening in Europe right now, which has to do with Chelsea. License given to Chelsea to operate has been slightly modified to allow them to sell tickets for the UEFA Champions League game that is upcoming against Real Madrid. How good is this piece of information to Chelsea fans? Kelechi, you seem to be a Chelsea fan. Are you happy that your team can now sell tickets involving the Champions League?
Well, I was happy that we've been granted that permission to start selling tickets, especially to away games, both in the FA Cup and also in the Champions League. It's actually good. As a Chelsea fan, it's just a good bit of a relief for you because what we've been facing lately. The sanctions that actually hitting us hard. It actually made us to not be able to enjoy some of the things that we're supposed to be enjoying, especially fans. Going to the stadium. It's only for long season ticket holders that actually benefit from tickets at the moment. But it's a good one for a good decision by UEFA to actually and to FA to actually relieve us from the sanctions, and hopefully it can actually help Chelsea as we look towards finishing the season strongly, and also getting fans at the Santiago Bernabeu in the Champions League as well.
Well, I think the bad news in that request is that you cannot sell tickets for the Premier League games. You can only sell tickets for UEFA Champions League games, and it means that even when you sell tickets for the UEFA Champions League games, you cannot receive the cash. Chelsea will not receive the cash. The cash will be received by UEFA on behalf of the government of England. Then you're already laughing. Chelsea in a precarious position, but at least they will have fans to balance up with the Real Madrid fans as well in the stadium.
I wonder why the World Football Governing Body has decided to mix sports and politics. These are two different things that doesn't go side by side. Chelsea, they are being meant to suffer for the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, despite the fact that it is believed that Vladimir Putin and Roman Abramovich, they have this wonderful and robust ties. But Roman Abramovich is not Vladimir Putin, and Chelsea is not a Russian team. So I wonder why they will hit Chelsea this hard just because of what Russia is doing to Ukraine. But be that as it may, for me, I personally believe that they are hitting too hard on Chelsea, and it's not good. If Chelsea is not a team that has this squad depth and a very wonderful coach, it would have affected the psyche of the players and the overall performance of the team. But if this team persists longer than this, it will definitely have a negative and devastating effect on the team.
Well, Kelechi is still talking about Chelsea and tickets. It's pathetic, but this is what it is. It's special license and what they call special permission. Chelsea fans cannot get tickets beyond those who have their season ticket. But now the rules have been somehow modified. Away teams can buy tickets now involving matches that involves Chelsea. So Chelsea may not have fans at home, but they will have fans. The away teams will have fans coming to watching them. And another regulation there is the fact that for the women team, they can have fans, so they can sell tickets for matches involving the women team. How will you react to these two conditions as approved by the authorities in England?
It's kind of like confusing. It doesn't really make any sense to me as a Chelsea fan. You cannot. It basically favors mostly the away side. I really don't know. The whole strategy from FIFA or from FA, or from the English FA to do stuff like this. I think the whole idea is actually to sanction Roman Abramovich, but somehow all of these decisions are starting to affect Chelsea in one way or the other, affecting the fans, affecting the club, and also even the psychology of the players as well. And I just hope that they can rectify some of these issues, which they've started rectifying by also granting us ability to sell tickets as well. Even though it's not necessarily going to go back into Chelsea's purse, it's actually going to benefit the FA and the UEFA itself. And they're trying to also cut out any form of financial flow into Chelsea. But I just hope that UK realizes that somehow, some way, this affects Chelsea, and Chelsea is a team in England and not just a team that is owned by Russia. So they should actually consider every decision that they make right now, and hopefully it doesn't really affect Chelsea, because Chelsea actually make England proud, especially when it comes to UEFA Cup competitions. Like we saw Chelsea win the UEFA Champions League and also other competitions, which is actually good for England as well. So I just hope that the English FA gets their sanctions right and actually lift some of them, so that it can actually be in benefit and favor of Chelsea and the Chelsea fans.
Well, in our final story, and of course it has to do with Chelsea as well, it's good news for Chelsea fans. It's not all bad, because there's been an additional £10 million. Earlier on we said that Chelsea cannot spend more than £20 million to prosecute games. Now they can spend up to £30 million. So it's good news for Chelsea fans. At least the team can at least fly to match venue and not go by speed train or go by bus. What do you think, Kelechi?
Yeah, it was actually a good news that Chelsea can now spend that amount of money. there was, it was somehow at some point it was laughable that Chelsea will be going to games by train or even to, be driven by the manager to games at France, faraway France. It was actually, really, really shocking. At some point, they were joked about that Chelsea were trying to join City, and to play Atletico Madrid because there was no money to fly. It was actually, really laughable at that moment. But right now, Chelsea can actually spend and see out the season. Especially, it's actually good news for Chelsea fans and Chelsea as well. It just relieves the pressure from them, and all of that pressure of there's no money to foot the bills for flight and for games actually out of the equation right now, so they can actually focus and complete the season and finish strongly, and also challenge for other titles that they're also taking part in, like the FA Cup and also the Champions League.
Well, how will it look like Chelsea being driven to a match venue by bus from one country to the other, not intra-country?
It's pitiable, it's laughable, and it's despicable. That means taking football back to its original state, the Stone Age, as a result of some sort of political problem. Like I've always said, you don't mix sports and politics. These are entirely two different things. It's economy and politics that goes together, not sports and politics. Sports should be a unifying factor. It should be a binding force. It's not something that should separate. So it would have been laughable that Chelsea be driven by bus to some countries in Europe, and you wonder, you know what it will do to the players. It won't be too good for them health-wise and otherwise. It will definitely affect their overall performance over time.
Well, Chelsea Football Club of England can now allow their franchise, but they cannot buy for Premier League games. And away fans can buy for Premier League games. It means that if they are playing in Stamford Bridge, it's the away fans that will do. But what can we say? But at least they have the provision now to fly to match venue, because their match provisions have increased from £20 million to £30 million. And that will be it for this edition of Sports Talk on Atlantic Television Network. We'll definitely return at 1 p.m. Nigerian time for trending stories from the world of sports at 1 p.m. on Sports Junction. Then at 6 p.m. tonight, we'll definitely be taking a look at the very important cracker match between the Black Stars of Ghana and the Super Eagles of Nigeria coming up in Kumasi tomorrow. We'll look at the entire team and what chances the teams have ahead of this qualification. Many thanks, Kelechi, for being part of the program, and of course, Edenko